Hello, boys and girls and children of all ages. Fat Bastard Wannabe Buddha coming at you today. Today's conversation is basically why I hate small businesses. I absolutely despise small businesses, independent operators, independent merchants, subcontractors. I don't much care for the physical structure of employment as it's currently constituted in American society. I don't believe small businesses are the backbone of American society. They are the backbone in a way, but it's a dark, seedy, nasty underside. It's an underbelly of the American society. That's what small businesses are. And small businesses pretty much got the real small businesses, independent merchants and small manufacturers, got destroyed in the late 70s, early 80s. I touched on this in my Southern blog. The South was the last ones that experienced the collapse of real independent operators and independent merchants and independent small businesses and not little wage monkeys. That's what we have right now. How this came about in American society is the Paul Volcker Federal Reserve decided to destroy or beat down inflation by limiting raising interest rates through the roof, and because most independent operators and small merchants and manufacturers had their payroll pretty much depended on floating short-term bonds and stuff, were priced out of business. And in order to beat inflation, quote unquote, Paul Volcker destroyed 2/3 of the manufacturing sector, and most of that was small manufacturing. And part of me believes fundamentally that it was done deliberately. There's other ways to beat out inflation in a society. And I think they used that as ways of consolidating wealth in this country, getting rid of some independent operators and small merchants. And now what's pretty much left is a bunch of wage monkeys out there thinking they're small businesses. And truthfully, what prompted this conversation is I've been opening for 6 days straight right now. I'm dead tired, so please forgive, and please forgive the camera angle and everything else. And I look physically terrible. I got my Jabba the Hutt look going today. Please bear that in mind. I'm sorry about that. I just got out of the shower. I just feel terrible. But anyway, what prompted this, I've been opening recently, and I've been listening to the Love Doctors, which is a small regional talk radio show that comes on in the Palm Beach area of South Florida. It's a very interesting show. And I listened to hear one of their callers on the way in, so I didn't hear the whole conversation. I just caught the guy call in, and he basically told a little heartbreaking story, which is quite common that you would hear in South Florida. And I think you probably much hear this everywhere in America because this is where we're headed. And it's namely, is he been working for an individual about 6 to 10 years, and he just recently blew his knee out. He no longer can work, or he can't go back to his job that he had because his employer, quote unquote, fired him. But the thing is, it wasn't his employer. That's right, boys and girls. He was a businessman. And the guy that he thought was employing him was also a businessman. And neither one of them had been paying workman's comp. Neither one of them had been paying any kind of health insurance. Neither one of them had been paying FICA or any basic level securities. And I didn't hear the whole conversation, but I've heard enough of these stories living in my little 41 years of life. I know exactly what happened. The individual probably by and large was a subcontractor, and he was doing it straight out for cash on the barrelhead. And he was getting paid in cash, and the individual was getting paid in cash, and they never probably thought twice about it until something bad happens. And now the individual physically can't work, and he can't go back to his employer because the employer has no use for him now because he can't work. And he can't go to the Social Security Administration because he hasn't been paying in FICA. So unfortunately, he probably ends up back on the dole. And that's what happens because individuals seeking to escape regulations are costing me and you money. Massive amounts of money. And whether that's from Walmart not paying a livable wage and telling their employees to get on food stamp and everything else, to this individual who wanted to outsource everything. And see, the purpose of regulations in a society is the only method that we have figured out as a society in several thousands of years of how to capture extraneous cost. And what exactly is the extraneous cost in the example I cite was, what if the guy gets freaking hurt? And what we normally say is, because this has happened in the past, let's set aside a portion of this individual's wage so that if he does get hurt, me and you are not paying for this individual. That's called regulation. But unfortunately, the small little businessman out there, I'm sorry, I mean the carpetbaggers, oh sorry about that. Maybe you don't understand carpetbaggers or wildcatters or wage monkeys out there. They all think they're businessmen, small independent businessmen, subcontractors. They don't believe in regulation because regulation cuts in their profit margin. If they have to set aside a portion of their wage or a portion of another wage money, a person's wage, it means there's less profit for them. So they have to get rid of that extraneous cost by passing it on to you and me, whether that's, in that case, setting aside a portion of the wage or lead in, the gasoline or whatever it is. Extraneous costs have to be passed on to the public somehow. And that's why regulations are bad. And I really don't much care for the small businesses in America, and it truthfully is personal. It really is. I'm a fifth generation carpenter. My entire family has been building houses since the Civil War, and we were always carpenters, and we were always independent contractors. We was always businessmen, and we always try to pay fair wages, and we always were bonded, licensed, and insured. But that's not what you can do in this society anymore. That's not what they expect in this society anymore. And that's not what's valued in this society anymore. And I can tell you, I tell this great little story. It was around 97, 98. Me and my uncle's a GC. Both of us were bonded, licensed, and insured. We had bid on a job. We placed a bid on the job. It was for 2,500 houses. Actually, 1,500 houses on 1,000 apartment complex, 1,000 apartment rentals. On the apartment rentals, we put it in at cost, which means we were not making a dime on those units because we expected to recoup a good chunk of the money on the 1,500 houses that we were going to do. So we put our bid in there, and we got the contract. But unfortunately, about a week into the project, something happened. They found somebody cheaper for the 1,500 houses. And the person they found that was cheaper for the 1,500 houses was an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid that they were allowing to work off their own license in order to get the job. And he was basically doing it at cost because, hey, he lived with mommy and daddy and he didn't have to carry a payroll. And he could just pop the houses as he needed to at the time. He wasn't a business. He was just an independent operator that learned how to run a saw on somebody else's job site, and then he went out there and underbid people. And that's pretty much what is taken over as far as the construction industry in America. And it's not the only industry. All of America is going to end up being some form of subcontractor, a giant race to the bottom. And this is what we haven't figured out as a society. There should be the purpose of regulation, and this is a person who is an anarchist and is proud of an anarchist, but I'm also an anarchist in the strip club. I'm the anarchist in the graduate meeting. I'm the anarchist in the school. But in real life, I recognize we're not there yet. And a lot of individuals haven't recognized this with their little childish philosophies that they believe in. I know the intellectual flaws and hazards of my philosophy, but that is an intellectual debate. It's not what I would craft for society. I recognize that I live amongst 300 million other Americans individuals on a planet with 7 billion, and we haven't grown up enough to have what I envision. And basic level regulations, basic minimal standards of safety and security, basic, a floor as far as what we will allow in wages in this society. That's what should be allowed. And what we're having here is a giant race to the bottom. And it's been done deliberately, slowly but surely. And one of the things that's doing it is small businesses, because there aren't any anymore. They're all gone. What you have right now are wage monkeys. That's what they are. Even those with 50 employees or 60 employees, and we know who they are. They don't want to pay the health care. They don't want to pay the benefits because they're not businesses anymore. They're wage monkeys. If you can't provide health care for your workers, if you can't provide, workman's comp or Social Security and all those evil regulations, maybe your business model is wrong and you should get out of business. I did. I put down my hammer. I'm not swinging it anymore. I decided I'm not going to go out there and be the cheapest monkey in the group. Nah, you can't pay me that enough to get me to swing the hammer again. You just can't. I have no problem saying you want fries with that until things change. If things change, maybe I will, but things aren't. And so this is the Fat Bastard. You want fries with that? Thank you very much.